So did you know that Rembrandt, like the painter, he had this special technique as well as a special paint, and we still don't know how he made it. Not entirely. There's like modern scientists in museums right now shooting paintings with x-rays trying to figure out how Rembrandt made his special paint. And I think that's just kind of a fun story, but the reason I mention it is that it reminds me of this. This is a vintage transformer from the 1960s, and I've wired it into a simple direct box. They don't make these anymore, and there's a huge following behind them. People are convinced that there is just some like magic dust in here that makes these sound the way they do. And so I'm going to be talking about this vintage transformer today, but before we get into it, I just wanted to say that I think stuff like this is one of the reasons why analog audio is never going to die. Digital is great, it's fantastic, you can make great music with it, just like you could make a great high-resolution photograph of a Rembrandt painting. But it's not the same type of work as getting your hands in the paint. And I think that folks like myself and people who stumble upon this channel are just fascinated with getting our hands in the paint. And what I mean by that is discovering and learning about these physical electrical phenomenon that over time we have made into music and art. It's just a different kind of working. When I think about trying to figure out how a transformer works or select a transformer, it reminds me of selecting a different kind of top wood for an acoustic guitar or a different kind of drum head for a snare drum. It's a different type of sound work to work with physics as opposed to modeling and ones and zeros. And I think there's just those of us out there that are kind of fascinated with that journey. So if that sounds like fun to you, I think you're going to enjoy this video. Stick around and I'll share with you my journey that I've been taking to learn more about vintage transformers. Hey guys, Tyler here at Alder Audio, and this video is the first in what I'm doing as like kind of a mini-series on transformers. I have gotten deep into the transformer world these last couple months, and it all started when somebody asked me about my ribbon mics. You've probably seen these. You can get them for $500 over at alderaudio.com, and I make every one of these, but I also wind every transformer in here. So a friend was asking me, if you wind these ribbon transformers, could you wind a comparable replacement to the Triad A12J, or there's also the A11J, which is, if you wire it right, kind of essentially the same transformer. And I had not heard about them before, so I went to looking it up, and I found out that there's like this whole vintage lore story behind these old transformers. And I encourage you to go look it up because it's kind of fun, and I'm not going to say all about it here. But the basics are that the studio engineer at Motown in kind of its heyday wanted to be able to record guitars and bass direct, and so he created what was one of the first direct boxes, and it was what was used to record like James Jamerson and was a big part of that sound. And at the time he used one of the best transformers he could get his hands on, which was this A12J or A11J. And so these have since like totally gotten bought off the used market. You can almost not get your hands on one, and people are convinced there's something magic about how they sound. I've heard people say that the core uses some material that's been regulated so we can't make it anymore. I've heard people say it's had something to do with molybdenum. There's all kinds of theories around these, but there's just definitely this kind of mysterious following around them. Now, I could not get my hands on an A12J or 11, but I do have this guy here in the direct box, and this is an A9J. You can see a catalog picture from the era right here, and you can see the A9J is a 1:12 ratio, whereas the A12J was a 1:10. So both of these are great direct box transformers, just slightly different ratio. There are some other differences, but I am convinced that if there was anything magic going on at the time, that we'll be able to detect it in this transformer as well. It's the same case, I believe it's the same core, and I think it's a good representation for how they were making transformers in that era. So the whole purpose of this video series for me is to learn from this vintage transformer and see what I can apply to my own modern transformer designs. Now, in future videos, I'm going to be doing kind of a deep dive electrical analysis of this thing, but for today, I just wanted to start out with a basic shootout. I want to be able to get an idea of how this sounds in comparison to what we have available on the market today. So I've selected two other transformers. One of them I'm calling the budget option. It came out of a box that was under $100. And then the other one I'm calling the industry standard option. And it's among what people would consider the best DI box transformers that you can buy today. And I'm going to do a blind shootout of these so we can get a sound reference. So this is going to be me playing bass as consistently as I can through three different just transformer DI boxes. Transformer is the only component, and I'd like to get your take. Here we go. Alright, so those are the bass samples, and if you want another chance to go back and listen, now is the time to do it. I also think it would be fun if people stopped the video here and left a comment, if you're going to leave one, before you find out what the transformers are. That's just kind of an interesting way to collect people's thoughts without any bias. But now I'm going to talk about what they are, so here it goes. A is the A9J, B is what I'm calling the industry standard transformer, and C is the budget transformer. Now, when I say that, I know there's going to be somebody out there whose conclusion is primarily, wow, I'm fine with the budget transformer. And if that is the only conclusion you take from this video, I'm entirely fine with that. That is not a bad conclusion to take here. The differences are pretty subtle. We're talking about hi-fi stuff. But as for myself, I do come away with a pretty solid and strong opinion of what I prefer, and I do like the A9J. To me, the bass through the A9J sounds the most quintessentially like a bass. In comparison, the other two kind of feel to me like they lose something. The industry standard transformer has a really nice low end, but it sounds like a little too rounded, a little like you lost something that I kind of want back. And then the budget transformer, to me, is fine, but can sound a little plasticky at points, a little dull and uninteresting, maybe a little artificial, if you're really listening. But, in a mix, completely usable. Now, that's what I think, but I honestly am way more interested in what you all think. So I would really appreciate a comment if you have one. So I think that's as far as we'll go today, just with the shootout. But in the very near future, we're going to be getting real nerdy with this vintage transformer. I'm going to be doing electrical measurements on this with the whole goal of taking those and seeing what we can learn for my own modern transformer winds. So if that whole journey sounds interesting to you, I invite you to keep an eye on the channel because I'm going to be coming out with these videos in pretty short order here, like within 1 or 2 weeks. Other than that, my name is Tyler at Alder Audio. Thanks for watching, and I hope you make some music today.